Today I figure I'd give you guys a look at Fighting Force on the PlayStation. This is one of my favorite beat-em-ups of all time, and one that I've always enjoyed. The game was also released on the PC, as well as the Nintendo 64. This has always been a fun game to me, and one that really holds up relatively well. It's also more fun to play with two players, and it also has a lot of cool old school beat 'em up action. This was during the era where 2D beat 'em ups reigned supreme, and the 3D beat 'em ups were kind of coming into their own. This game is really fun, and is probably my favorite 3D beat 'em up that I've ever played. The game lets you play as one of four characters, one of which being Hawk, more or less the main character, and the only character to go over to the sequel, Fighting Force 2, but we'll talk about that maybe another day. And he's more or less an all-arounder, perfectly balanced speed and power. You have Alana, who is basically just a speed fighter, and also apparently the main villain's daughter, just a little bit of backstory, I suppose. There's also Mace, who's also basically an all-arounder, but probably a little faster than Hawk, but not quite as powerful. And then you have Smasher, who's just the brute. He's all power, all strength. He's more or less the thing of this Fantastic Four. Although, this is obviously not the Fantastic Four, but you get what I'm saying. You can tell the game was made in 1997 because the Twin Towers are prominent in the background of this New York City landscape and are sadly no longer there in real life. The game takes place in the far distant future of 1999 and was released in the year 1997. The game has lots of cool violence and action and shooting in it. It is rated T, but it's probably one of the more violent rated T games of that era. And so without further ado, I figured I'd give you guys a look, and we'll go over some of the finer aspects of the game. I'll play as Hawk because he's my personal favorite. And like I said, he's more or less the main character of the game. PlayStation 1 loading screens. You gotta love them. Yeah, but if you were a kid in the 90s and early 2000s, you had to do a lot of waiting to get to your games. And here we are. As you can see, the game has, you can punch, you can kick, jump. Sorry, I got my controls, but backhand, which is great. How many games can you backhand people? Not many. You can grab people as well, finish them off, kick them. I like how every character has their own name. Most of them just repeat, but the guy's name will be Punk or Brutus or whatever. The game also has very destructible environments. Like, for instance, I'll punch this car. If you continue to hit it, eventually the wheels will come off, and as you can see, something falls out the trunk. What is that? Well, it's a damn rocket launcher, which you can pick up. All the weapons in the game, all the projectile weapons, such as guns and explosives like this, only have very limited ammo, but the idea is they want you to mostly fight with your fists. As you can see, there's also a gun over here and a crowbar. Basically, the guns, when you get them, you got to use them when you got them. That's right. I just blasted you. I blast you too. Bam! Say hi to your mother for me. And when you're done with it, you can just hit the jump button, the kick button rather, and throw it. The enemies will drop food on the ground, which is how you replenish your health, which is just such an old school thing about some of these video games. I just love it. Better get this pistol. Here we go. Oh, what's that? Oh, what is it? It's a van! Better shoot them with my gun. Uh-oh. And like I said, see, you're quickly out of ammo. And then it's back to your fist. Show them who's boss. There's also special moves like that, which you take on multiple people at once, but that does use up your health. That was the thing with a lot of these beat 'em ups at the time. They let you have a special move that would basically clear out enemies, but the downside is it would hurt you. Try to get that sandwich. Got the sandwich. This game, like I said, was also released on Nintendo 64, but this seems to be the better version. I do like the 64 version, but it's a little stiffer in the controls, I'd say. The graphics are a little more clear in that version, but that is a more powerful system than the PlayStation, so it's to be expected. Yeah, oh. Let me get rid of this crowbar. Bam! Like I said, the game is pretty violent for the time it came out in. And if you notice next to Hawk's name, well, you probably won't be able to see it from this angle, but next to Hawk's name, there's actually a counter. The more destruction you do, the more you hurt the enemies, the bigger that number gets. And if the number gets big enough, you get unlock alternate routes and new levels while playing through the game, which is just pretty awesome. As you see, there's money you can pick up too, and that adds to your overall points as well. Oh, I got shot in the face. That's one thing I never understood about the game, is also the bad guys don't really carry many guns. You know, probably I'd say like 1 out of every like 20 bad guys has a gun. But you'd think, you know, you have a man breaking into your building to destroy or take down your boss, you'd think you want to take him out. And now you say the level is clear. I usually like to destroy more of the level before I move on to the next level, but I'm just giving you guys a taste of the game. The story of the game is essentially there's this madman named, I think it's Zurg, kind of like from, I think, is that the same name as a bad guy from Toy Story, I believe? And he wants to use his power and influence to take over the world and destroy it, basically. This was during the Y2K scare of the late 90s. Everyone thought when the year 2000 came around, the world would just come to an end. And the game kind of plays with that. Jeez, I'm shooting me in the face. Forgive me for being a little rusty. I haven't played this game in a good while. But the game takes place in '99. You have to stop this bad guy named Zurg. And that's basically the story. The game even has a tagline, which is probably one of the worst taglines I've ever heard, which is, "It's time to end the end of the world." I don't know how many minutes it took them to come up with that, but I guess it could have been more than 3. That's right, you can drink soda to replenish your health as well. You gotta love Cola brand cola. Don't mind if I do. Bitch, I was drinking a soda. There we go. Well, that's the basic idea of the game. It's essentially just a beat 'em up, where you just go through waves of enemies, beating them up, grabbing them, throwing them, kicking them, whatever have you. Shooting them, throwing them through walls. You can even destroy walls to get to the next areas, as you can see here. Very destructible environments for the time. It's just an overall fun game. Come on. That's right. There we go. Now can I break the wall? No? Jeez. Well, you get the idea. Essentially, the game is just a 3D beat 'em up with lots of fun levels and environments. It starts off, you got to go into the building and try to find the bad guy. Then you end up in a mall, and then eventually an army base, and then like an underground lab. The game has a lot of variety going for it, And they're really making something special with this game. It was just a really fun beat 'em up. And if you like retro kind of 3D beat 'em ups, I would recommend it, especially with friends. I know I didn't play too great in this playthrough, I guess you would call it. But like I said, I'm a little bit rusty. I haven't played this game in a few years. There was also a sequel released just a few years later. I'll show that to you now real quick. Here we are. There was a sequel released for the PlayStation as well as the Dreamcast, known as Fighting Force 2, obviously. This sequel is not quite as good. It's only single player, whereas the first game is 2-player. And it takes place, I guess a few years after this game, and you only play as Hawk this time around. And it's a fun game. I still do recommend Fighting Force 2. I think it's fun as well. But it's not nearly as good as the first one, especially considering the fact that it lacks any sort of multiplayer. But that's my look, or my retrospective look at Fighting Force. A fun game, but not perfect. It's clunky, it does get repetitive pretty quick, especially towards the end of the game. But if you want just a good old-fashioned beat-em-up, you can't go wrong with this game, and it's one that I do very much recommend. So if you got yourself a PS1, 2, or 3, or maybe an old N64 lying around, I'd say check it out. It's a good game, and one that I recommend. That's my video. Hope you enjoyed it, and peace out.